my friends, what happens when life leaves the body? What mysteries unfold when your spirit crosses over? Many live their entire lives afraid of death, yet never ask what truth it may reveal. Today, you will hear a perspective that will challenge your faith, shake your understanding, and ignite a new hunger for the language of heaven. There is a power God placed inside you, a power not of intellect, not of education, but of His Spirit. And when that power is unlocked, the impossible becomes possible. The mystery of life beyond death, my friend, is one of the greatest questions that has haunted mankind since the beginning of time. What happens when the heart stops beating? What happens when the last breath escapes the lips? Is there silence? Or is there something more, something beyond what the natural eye can see? Death is not the end. It is not the final chapter. It is simply a doorway, a transition, a passage from one realm into another. And the truth is, every one of us will face it, no matter how rich, how poor, how powerful, or how weak. Death is the one appointment none of us can cancel. When a person dies, the body returns to the dust, but the spirit does not. The spirit continues. The spirit is eternal. And here lies the mystery. What your spirit experiences after death is directly connected to how you lived before death. The decisions you made, the words you spoke, the life you carried, all become echoes in eternity. That is why the revelation of life beyond death should not terrify us, but awaken us. It should shake us out of casual living and push us into divine purpose. Now imagine this: the veil of flesh is removed and your eyes are opened to a dimension where time no longer exists. You suddenly realize everything you thought was permanent on earth was temporary, and everything you ignored as spiritual was eternal. That is the mystery of life beyond death. It flips the order of value. What men chase on earth, heaven calls dust. And what men ignore on earth, heaven calls treasure. So what is God revealing to us through this? He is saying, prepare now, because the life you are living is not the conclusion. It is the preparation. Your choices, your prayers, your obedience, your worship, they are not small acts. They are eternal investments. Every word you speak, every seed you sow, every act of faith is written in a dimension that death cannot erase. Death does not close the story. It only transfers the story to another stage. And here is the powerful truth. When you understand that life does not end at death, you stop living like time is your master. You stop wasting your days on what does not matter. You stop chasing shadows and you start pursuing substance, because you now realize your spirit is greater than your flesh and your destiny is greater than your present. But let me ask you this question. If life beyond death reveals such mysteries, what about the language of heaven that connects us to that realm even while we are alive? What about the hidden power of speaking in tongues, the divine code that allows your spirit to speak directly to God? Could it be that what death reveals in full, tongues allow us to access in part right now? That, my friend, is where the journey takes us next. Heaven's language and earth's limitation. What a contrast, what a paradox, what a divine tension we must learn to navigate. On earth, we are bound by words, by grammar, by vocabulary, by the limits of human understanding. We communicate with sounds, with syllables, with definitions that fit inside the walls of culture and knowledge. But heaven, my friend, heaven does not speak in limitations. Heaven does not need translation. It does not need dictionaries. It does not depend on human intellect. Heaven speaks in spirit, in power, in revelation, in mysteries that no man can fully comprehend with the natural mind. This is why so many struggle, because they try to understand God with their head when God was never meant to be contained in human logic. How do you define the eternal with the temporary? How do you explain the infinite with the finite? It cannot be done. The mind of man is too small to carry the mind of God. That is why heaven gave us a language that bypasses the intellect, a language that does not submit to earth's limitations. It is the language of the Spirit. Now think about this. When a child is born, he cries, he makes sounds, he does not speak words the way adults do, yet his parents understand the meaning. In the same way, when your spirit cries out to God in a language unknown, the Father in heaven understands. Why? Because that sound is not trapped by earth. It is born of heaven. It is heaven's way of giving you access to its secrets, even while you live within the boundaries of time and flesh. So many believers live frustrated because they are trying to solve spiritual battles with earthly words. They are trying to fight invisible enemies with visible weapons. But when you step into heaven's language, something shifts. Suddenly, your prayers carry weight you cannot see. Suddenly, your utterances release authority you cannot measure. The enemy may understand your earthly words, but he cannot decode your heavenly language. The language of the Spirit bypasses his traps, his schemes, his monitoring spirits, and it goes directly to the throne room of God. And here's the beauty of it all. When you pray in that heavenly language, you align your spirit with God's perfect will. Even when your mind is confused, even when your emotions are broken, even when your strength is weak, the Spirit intercedes through you with sounds, with groanings, with utterances too deep for words. It is heaven speaking through you, and earth cannot stop it. But let me ask you, if heaven's language is so powerful, if it can bypass the limits of your human mind, then what is it that the Spirit is truly revealing when you open your mouth and speak in tongues? What mysteries are unlocked? What secrets are released? What codes are broken in the unseen realm? That, my friend, is the next door we must open. What the Spirit reveals when the flesh is silent is one of the deepest mysteries of the kingdom. As long as the flesh is loud, the Spirit is quiet. As long as human reasoning, human fears, human desires, and human pride take center stage, the voice of the Spirit is drowned out. But the moment the flesh is silenced, when the noise of your own will is laid down, suddenly heaven begins to speak. And what you hear in that silence is not ordinary. It is revelation, it is guidance. It is truth that could never be learned in classrooms, never be taught by men, never be captured in books. The flesh operates by senses, sight, sound, touch, taste, and smell. The Spirit, however, operates by discernment, by vision, by revelation, by divine knowing. The flesh asks, how will this work? But the Spirit declares, it is already done. The flesh sees giants, but the Spirit sees victory. The flesh sees impossibility, but the Spirit whispers, with God, all things are possible. Can you imagine how different your life would be if you stopped letting the flesh interpret your future and allowed the Spirit to reveal your destiny? When the flesh is silenced, prayers change. Instead of begging God for what you think you need, the Spirit begins to reveal what God has already prepared. When the flesh is silenced, fear disappears because revelation brings confidence. When the flesh is silenced, you stop walking by what you see and you start walking by what you know in your spirit. And that knowledge is unshakable because it comes from God Himself. Many of us pray, but our prayers are polluted by the voice of the flesh. We ask based on worry, we cry based on fear, we plead based on weakness. But when the flesh is silent and the Spirit takes over, your prayer language shifts. You no longer pray your will, you pray God's will. You no longer speak from pain, you speak from purpose. You no longer declare your own understanding, you declare divine revelation. And here is the key: the Spirit will always reveal mysteries that the flesh cannot handle. The Spirit shows you doors before they open. The Spirit shows you attacks before they manifest. The Spirit gives you solutions before problems even arise. That is why the enemy fights so hard to keep your flesh loud, because he knows once the flesh is silent, heaven's strategies are released. And once you carry revelation, no demon, no curse, no weapon can stop you. But here's the question: if the Spirit reveals such mysteries, when the flesh is silent, then what is hidden inside the act of speaking in tongues? Could it be that tongues are the very channel the Spirit uses to bypass the flesh completely and release divine secrets directly into your life? The answer, my friend, will take us even deeper. Unlocking the power of tongues in eternal perspective is something far greater than we have been taught. Far greater than just uttering strange sounds, far greater than emotional expressions in a moment of worship. Tongues are not merely for the now, they are for eternity. Tongues are not just for your personal edification. They are a divine code that links time with eternity, earth with heaven, mortality with immortality. When you open your mouth and speak in tongues, you are not simply saying words you don't understand. You are unlocking the eternal dimension of God's plan for your life. Think about this. When you pray in your own language, you are limited to your knowledge, limited to your vocabulary, limited to your understanding. You pray according to what you see, what you feel, what you think. But when you pray in tongues, you pray beyond time. You pray into tomorrow, into next year, into the generations after you. You pray mysteries that your mind cannot grasp, but your spirit understands, and God records in eternity. What your lips cannot explain, your spirit can declare. Tongues are God's way of giving you access to prayers that never expire. Even when you are gone, the prayers you prayed in the Spirit live on. They hover over your children. They protect your destiny. They unlock doors long after your voice has been silenced on earth. That is why praying in tongues is not just a spiritual exercise. It is an eternal investment. You are sowing into dimensions you may never see with your natural eyes, but your spirit has already entered. And here is the amazing thing. Tongues align your spirit with the perfect will of God. Sometimes we pray for things that are good, but not God's best. Sometimes we ask for what seems urgent, but heaven has a higher plan. When you pray in tongues, you bypass your limited requests and step into God's unlimited purposes. You are no longer praying your will, you are declaring His will. And His will is eternal. His will is unshakable. His will is already settled in heaven, and when you speak in tongues, you bring it down into the earth. The eternal perspective is this: tongues are not temporary. They are not bound to a worship service, not limited to a church building, not confined to a moment of emotion. Tongues are the voice of your spirit, echoing into eternity. They are your spirit speaking heaven's language, releasing heaven's will, declaring heaven's power. When you grasp this, you will never again treat tongues as casual. You will never again remain silent when your spirit longs to speak. But let me ask you this: if tongues unlock eternal mysteries, what divine secrets are hidden within this language that cannot be uttered in human words? What treasures are buried in this code that only heaven can interpret? My friend, the next revelation will open your eyes even wider. Divine secrets released through spiritual language. This is where the mystery becomes breathtaking. Do you realize, my friend, that when you open your mouth and speak in tongues, you are not just releasing sounds into the air, you are unlocking secrets from heaven itself. Secrets that are hidden from men, hidden from scholars, hidden from rulers, hidden even from the enemy. The Bible calls them mysteries, divine codes that your natural mind cannot decipher, but your spirit knows and God understands. What are these secrets? They are strategies, they are answers, they are solutions waiting to be revealed. They are blueprints for your future, instructions for your destiny, protection for your family, direction for your decisions. And here's the truth: you cannot get them by reasoning. You cannot get them by study alone. You can only access them when the Spirit prays through you in that heavenly language. Because tongues are not words invented by man. They are the Spirit Himself interceding, speaking mysteries directly into your life. Imagine you are facing a problem you don't understand, a challenge too heavy for your mind to solve. You begin to pray in the Spirit, and as you do, heaven starts downloading strategies into your soul. You may not even realize it in that moment, but later you walk into a decision, an opportunity, a breakthrough, and you wonder, how did this happen? It was the divine secret released through your prayer language, a secret written in heaven, now manifesting on earth. Even more powerful, these secrets are not accessible to the enemy. When you pray in your own language, the enemy listens, he plans, he resists. But when you pray in tongues, you speak in a code he cannot break. It is heaven's encrypted system. He cannot intercept it, he cannot stop it, he cannot translate it. The Spirit speaks directly to God on your behalf, bypassing every barrier, bypassing every attack, bypassing every limitation. Can you see the power of this? You are literally speaking divine secrets into your future, and hell is powerless against them. And here is something deeper. These secrets are not only for your benefit, they are for the kingdom. When you speak in tongues, you may be praying for nations, for leaders, for revival, for doors that you will never see with your own eyes. Your spirit is cooperating with heaven's agenda. You become a partner in God's master plan, releasing divine secrets that shape history. But let me ask you this. If tongues release secrets from heaven, what about the hidden code of the kingdom itself? What about the blueprint of divine authority embedded in this language? Could it be that tongues are not only releasing secrets, but they are unlocking a kingdom code that governs power, authority, and dominion? That, my friend, is the revelation waiting just ahead. The kingdom code hidden in tongues. This is where heaven reveals its government in the most profound way. Every kingdom operates by codes, by principles, by laws that maintain its order and authority. Earthly kingdoms have their constitutions, their decrees, their languages, and whoever learns the code gains access to the power of that kingdom. In the same way, the kingdom of God has a language, and it is not English, not Spanish, not any earthly tongue. The kingdom's code is hidden in the language of the Spirit, the gift of tongues. When you pray in tongues, you are not just speaking, you are entering into the legal framework of heaven's government. You are declaring the decrees of the King, even though your mind does not fully comprehend them. That is why the Bible says you speak mysteries. Mysteries are not confusion. They are divine codes, heavenly decrees sealed in the Spirit. And here is the wonder. When you declare those codes, angels understand them. Heaven moves by them. And the will of God is enforced in the earth. Think of it like this. If you stand in a courtroom and you don't know the legal language, your voice carries no authority. But when a lawyer speaks in legal terms, suddenly the atmosphere shifts because the code of the law is being activated. In the same way, when you speak in tongues, your spirit is activating the legal language of the kingdom. You are speaking heaven's law into the earth, commanding situations to align with divine order. This is why tongues cannot be treated casually, because they are not just for personal encouragement. They are decrees in the unseen realm. They are the language of dominion. Every time you speak in tongues, you are releasing laws that override the laws of the natural. You are bringing the kingdom code into operation, forcing sickness to bow, forcing fear to retreat, forcing lack to yield, because the code of heaven is greater than the code of earth. But here is what makes it even more powerful. This code is hidden from the world. Earthly rulers cannot access it. Intellectual minds cannot decode it. Demonic forces cannot hijack it. It is the secret code between the Spirit of God and the spirit of man, reserved only for those who are born into the kingdom. And once you unlock it, you begin to operate not as a victim of circumstances, but as an ambassador of heaven, carrying the full weight of divine authority. But my friend, let me ask you, if tongues carry the code of the kingdom, why does heaven respond so strongly to this language? Why does the throne of God move when a believer begins to pray in the Spirit? Could it be that heaven has chosen this language as its own response system, its own signal, its own alarm? That, my friend, is the mystery we must uncover next. Why heaven responds to the language of the Spirit. This is where divine power meets human surrender. Have you ever wondered, why does heaven respond so quickly, so powerfully, when a believer begins to pray in tongues? It is because tongues are not born of flesh, they are born of the Spirit. They do not originate from human intellect, they originate from God Himself. When you speak in tongues, you are speaking heaven's own language, and heaven always responds to its own. Think about it. Every kingdom responds to the language of its citizens. If you go to a foreign nation and speak the wrong language, you may be ignored, misunderstood, or even rejected. But the moment you speak the native tongue, doors open. People listen, systems respond. In the same way, when you pray in your own language, heaven listens with love. But when you switch to the language of the Spirit, heaven responds with authority. Because now you are not praying as a stranger. You are speaking as a citizen of the kingdom. Tongues carry the sound of alignment. They declare, "This is not my will, but yours be done." They say, "Not my understanding, but your wisdom." They echo the heartbeat of heaven. And whenever heaven hears its own language spoken from earth, it cannot remain silent. It must answer, it must move, it must act. That is why miracles break out when people pray in tongues. That is why breakthroughs happen. That is why chains fall. Because heaven is responding to its own decree being spoken through you. Even more, tongues bypass interference. The enemy can resist your prayers when you speak what he understands. But when you speak in tongues, the line is clear, the channel is pure, the communication is direct. Heaven receives it without distortion, without delay, without opposition. It is like a private hotline between you and the throne of God, and heaven does not ignore its own hotline. This is also why the Bible says, when you pray in the Spirit, you build yourself up, because heaven not only responds outwardly to your situation, it also responds inwardly to your spirit. You are strengthened, renewed, empowered, revived, because heaven is pouring back into you the very life of God. Every word you speak in tongues becomes a two-way flow. Your spirit speaks to heaven, and heaven answers by pouring back strength, peace, and revelation. But let me ask you this. If heaven responds so strongly to this language, what happens in the unseen realm when you speak in tongues? What takes place in the invisible world that your natural eyes cannot see? Could it be that angels are activated, that battles are won, that atmospheres are shifted, all because of the sound of the Spirit through your voice? My friend, the next revelation will open that invisible reality, speaking what angels understand, but men ignore. This is a dimension that reveals the hidden partnership between heaven and earth. Angels are ministering spirits sent to serve those who inherit salvation. They move at the command of God, and they respond to the language of heaven. When you speak in tongues, you are not speaking empty words, you are releasing commands that activate angelic assignments. The strange sounds your natural ears cannot understand are instructions in the spirit realm, and angels understand them perfectly. Think about this. On earth, men may laugh at you, mock you, or even ignore you when you speak in tongues. They call it foolishness. They call it noise, because the natural man cannot comprehend spiritual things. But while men ignore, angels are standing at attention. While people dismiss your voice, heaven's army hears a trumpet. Angels do not respond to your emotions. They respond to the code of the kingdom. And tongues, my friend, carry that code. When you pray in tongues, you may not know what you are saying, but heaven does. Angels hear instructions being released. They hear doors being commanded to open, enemies being ordered to flee, protections being put in place, blessings being dispatched. And without hesitation, they move. This is why breakthroughs sometimes come suddenly, why favor shows up unexpectedly. Why protection covers you when you didn't even ask for it in words you understood. It was your spirit speaking through tongues that gave the command angels were waiting for. Now imagine the danger of ignoring this gift. When you stay silent, when you refuse to pray in tongues, you deny angels their instructions. You limit heaven's movement in your affairs. That is why the enemy tries so hard to make believers doubt, to make them fear, to make them neglect this gift. Because he knows when you open your mouth and release that heavenly language, you activate forces he cannot resist. Men may call it strange, but angels call it clear. Men may call it nonsense, but angels call it order. Men may say it's confusion, but angels say it's command. You are not speaking to impress people, you are speaking to move heaven. That is why you must never be ashamed of your prayer language. Never suppress it to please others. Never hide it because men ignore what they do not understand. For while they are ignoring, angels are already moving. But here is the question. If angels respond to the voice of tongues, then what is the eternal impact of these spiritual utterances? How far do these words go, not just in your life, but in the realms beyond time? Could it be that every word in tongues carries weight, not only for today, but for eternity? That, my friend, is the revelation waiting to unfold next. The eternal impact of spiritual utterance is a truth many have overlooked, yet it carries the greatest weight in the kingdom. When you speak in tongues, those words do not vanish into thin air. They do not evaporate in the atmosphere. They are eternal seeds planted in the soil of heaven. Every sound you release in the Spirit echoes in eternity. They are recorded, preserved, and carried out by the power of God himself. Think of it this way: earthly words fade with time. Conversations are forgotten, speeches are buried. Declarations on earth can be erased by history. But words born of the Spirit are not bound by time. They are not bound by history. They are not bound by generations. When you speak in tongues, you are sowing into a realm where nothing dies, nothing fades, nothing disappears. Those utterances live forever. They travel into dimensions where your natural life cannot go. They reach into the lives of your children, your grandchildren, and even generations you will never meet. This is why speaking in tongues is more than just a personal devotion. It is a legacy. You are writing history in the unseen realm. You are creating foundations for destinies not yet born. Long after your voice has gone silent on earth, your voice in the Spirit is still speaking in eternity, and heaven continues to answer. Now let me ask you, have you ever wondered why some blessings flow to families long after the person who prayed is gone? Why favor follows generations? Why protection covers descendants they never met? It is because someone years ago sowed seeds in the Spirit. Someone prayed in tongues. Someone released utterances that never died, and heaven is still honoring them. That is the eternal impact of spiritual language. Even more, every word in tongues becomes part of heaven's record. God is not only hearing, he is storing. The Spirit intercedes with groanings that cannot be understood, but heaven interprets and heaven keeps them. And on the day you need it most, heaven releases the answer. On the day of battle, the utterance you prayed months or years ago rises as a shield. On the day of opportunity, the word you spoke in the Spirit becomes the key to open the door. Eternity does not forget what the Spirit has spoken through you. But here is the deeper truth. If spiritual utterance has eternal impact, then what bridge does it create between earth and heaven? How do tongues not only affect your future, but connect you to the eternal presence of God himself? Could it be that this language is the very bridge that unites earth with eternity, time with timelessness, man with God? That, my friend, is the final revelation we must step into. Tongues, the bridge between earth and eternity. This is where everything comes together. From the very beginning, God designed mankind to live in two realms at once. With your body, you interact with earth, but with your spirit. You interact with heaven, yet most people live only from the natural side, trapped in what they see, limited by what they touch, bound by what they hear. But tongues, my friend, tongues break that barrier. Tongues are the supernatural bridge that allows your spirit to step into eternity while your feet are still standing on earth. When you pray in tongues, you are lifting your life out of the temporary and planting it into the eternal. You are no longer limited to what you know or bound by what you feel. In that moment, you are standing in two dimensions at once, earthly in body, heavenly in spirit. It is the closest thing to walking with God face to face while still in this flesh. Because tongues are not man-made, they are not intellectual, they are not emotional, they are eternal. Think of it, every time you speak in tongues, you are building a bridge. On one side is earth, full of struggles, limitations, trials, and confusion. On the other side is heaven, full of answers, power, authority, and peace. Tongues connect the two, carrying your prayers upward and bringing heaven's resources downward. They transport your weaknesses to God and bring back His strength. They carry your confusion upward and return with His clarity. They take your cries to the throne and return with solutions that no man could give you. This is why the enemy hates tongues so much, because they make you unstoppable. When you pray in your language, he can monitor you, frustrate you, and resist you. But when you pray in tongues, you step onto the bridge, and he cannot follow. You have left the realm of the natural and entered the eternal flow of God's Spirit. And in that place, your victory is sealed. Tongues keep you connected even when the world is shaking. Tongues keep you rooted even when everything around you is falling apart. Tongues keep you aligned even when your mind doesn't understand what God is doing. They remind you that you are not just a body living in time, you are a spirit living in eternity, and that connection cannot be broken. So let me ask you, will you live only from earth, or will you rise into eternity while you still breathe? Will you stay trapped in the natural, or will you cross the bridge God has given you? The gift of tongues is not optional. It is vital. It is not strange. It is divine. It is not weakness. It is strength. It is heaven's way of keeping you connected to eternity while you walk through time. My friend, never ignore this gift. Never silence your spirit. Never let doubt steal this connection. Because every time you speak in tongues, you step into eternity, you align with heaven, and you invite the power of God to invade your present. And as you walk this bridge daily, you will discover you are never alone, you are never powerless, you are never without access. For the Spirit Himself is praying through you, building a bridge that no man, no demon, and no force of hell can ever destroy.